week. But today what we're going to do is I'm going to go through all of the databases inside of Notion. For those of you that don't know, there's been a recent update that's included the timeline view, and they have done some small tweaks with the way that you can view different properties inside the database views. So what I'm going to do is go through all of the database views and all of the different properties you can have in a database to see how it changes the view you can have and how you can access some of those things inside your main dashboard. If you want to let me know in the chat where you're coming in from, and if you have any questions, that will be where I'm looking for them. If you are watching this on the replay, I will have a look in the comment section below, and I will be answering them as much as I can after stream, and I will get the timestamps done after stream as well, so you can skip through the bits that you want to go to. Right, so I will start sharing my screen, and if it is too small, let me know in chat so I can zoom in a little bit. So what we are currently looking at is a completely blank page. You can see my sidebar, it is completely empty. So that's my main dashboard. That's where I normally am. And I've created this brand new page. I'm going to call this database views. And you can see we have the options to create a database. Now, that would make it a database page, not an inline database or anything like that. So instead of clicking one of these and using the table, board, list, calendar, gallery, or timeline, I'm actually going to click inside the page. And what that allows me to do is make an inline database. And I've just realized I've spelled database wrong. There we go. So now I'm going to use the / command, and I'm going to start with the table view because that's the view that I would go to first when creating any sort of database because I can see the most information. So I'm going to create an inline table, not a full page, because the full page would only create a page and then you can only see that. A little bit limited. And there's your Notion here. Good to see you here. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to treat this as if because I'm a creator, I'm going to create this as if I was going to set up a workspace for another creator of any sort of content. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this one actions. Let's call it actions instead of tasks. I have loads of task databases. So this one is actions, and I'm actually going to create another one for the rollup properties later on. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to use the / command, go table. Esme, good to see you. Homesick Mac, also good to see you. Oh, I'm here too. Good. Okay, so we've now got a second database, and we're going to call this one videos. There we go. I don't think I have any database called those things. So as you can see, they've actually changed the default properties that they've given you in the table database. Previously, there were 2. Now there's just 1. I don't know why they did that, but it doesn't really make that much of a difference. So very quickly, before I carry on, I am going to make this page wide. The main reason is so that I can see all of the properties that I'm going to be going through because there's a lot of them and there's more than just what you show. I'm going to go through the different types of the types of properties, and that will make sense later on. So I'm going to make this full width, and I'm actually going to make a couple of columns just to put them next to one another. So we're going to put the actions one in there, and then we're going to put the videos one in here. And that's actually going to show you the first change that they've made aesthetically. Ryan, good to see you. Dubai, awesome. I'm bouncing around the world helping startups commercialize their tech. I reckon Notion is an ideal tool for them. I would agree. I will agree. There are loads of tools out there, but Notion is so versatile. It does have a bit of a learning curve, but there are so many people creating content other than myself that help you out with things like that. So we'd love to collaborate sometime. Yeah, just send me a message, an email, or anything like that. All the contacts are on my YouTube channel and everywhere on social media. But yeah, so the first aesthetic change is if you're on Mac, you already had these. But now on PC, you get these nicer looking scroll bars. So if I were to drag this out, you can see instead of having the nasty looking scroll bar that we used to have, it looks like this. And to me, it looks much better aesthetically. So that is the first smaller change that they've made within Notion from an aesthetics perspective. So we have our first property in here, and we're going to call it tag 1 because I'm going to be really inventive, tag 2 and tag 3. So we now have our first property, which is a multi-select property. Now, because I know I'm going to be putting loads of stuff in here, I'm actually going to change this to wrap cell. So at the moment it's on, so it's just going to show you the list of all the stuff that you have in the properties going all the way down in the table view. And in the table view, if you have that and loads of tags or loads of relations, it will fill up a lot of space. So I'm going to wrap cell so it always stays in this one line. So it's still there, you just can't see it all. Now for the next property, I'm going to create a text property and I'm going to call it text so I know what we're doing, so I know what's going on. I'm going to move that to the start so I'm remembering where I am. The name property is essentially the same as the text property, but followed in its step. Awesome. The name property is the same as the text property, but the name property cannot be changed. So the text property can be turned into any other sort of property, and we will go through all of these throughout the stream. But the name property can't be changed currently, and you can't put anything in there other than text or an emoji or something like that. And the main reason for that is when you start relating databases together, the name property is what the other database is looking for. So when we relate videos and actions later on in the stream, the videos database is going to be looking for the name property for reference. So if you were to have this as a tag property or anything else, the videos database wouldn't be able to reference it. That's where rollup comes in. Again, we'll go through that later on in the stream. So text, let's write some text in here and let's bring up an emoji. I'm on Windows, so that was the window key plus the full stop, push them at the same time. And now I have access to all of these. Let's put the orange in there because I used that in the recent stream. So now we have a text and an orange. Awesome. So we now have two properties. We're going to move on. We're going to have a number property. And there was actually another change before I say that. I'm hovering over the number property and I've typed in the name of the property. And because I've typed in the name of the property and hovering over, I can just push enter and it will automatically select the property my mouse is over. And that for me speeds up the creation of properties when I'm making lots and lots of databases because I don't have to move the mouse and click and click. It's just a speed thing. So inside the number property, we can add, surprise, surprise, numbers. Let's go 13. Oh, wow. Typing, Danny. There we go. And then we have the little change box over here. Unfortunately, this is something that Tim brought up. I think it was on Twitter. There is no pounds as in like weights as a number style yet, but they've added quite a few different currencies. So you can see all of these currencies down the bottom here. These were all added in some recent small updates, but we have all of these different properties, numbers and numbers with commas. I personally just keep the number as a number property. Sometimes I will use pounds. Where's pounds? And you can see it adds that on there. So that's one of those things that depending on what you're using the database for, it could be useful. Sometimes it gets in the way. For me, I just keep them as a number, but we'll keep it as a pound just for view it for the database views later on. So that's a number property. And then we have a select property, select. And in here, the select property is the exact same as the multi-select property, except this one, we have select one. You only have one. So this is like a drop-down menu. Let's actually change that to multi-select. And again, I can't spell. There we go, multi-select. Let's make that. There we go. So the select property differs from the multi-select because you can only choose one. You can't have multiple things in a select property. So let's go select two. And there we go. There's that one. To speed that process up, what you could do is you could have a text property and start with select one, put a comma in, then go select two, comma, select three. And now what you can do is you can turn the text property into a select property. And there is all of the things that you need with the same color. That's just a quick shortcut to help you if you're going to make lots and lots of things in a drop-down menu and you don't want to have to click backwards and forwards going through those things. Select. Okay, so now we've got the select property done. All of these properties will change the availability you have with different views later on, but in the table view, it's very simple. This is all you can see in a table view. Now, let's go for the next one. So we've got date property. Now, I'm actually going to create multiple versions of this date property. I can drag this one back down now because I don't need to show you the scroll bars anymore. In the date property, as you can imagine, you can pick a date. So I'm going to pick today's date, and there is today's date. Let's name this. Let's name this dummy page. John, if you're watching, you'll understand the reference. And anyone that watches the Notion Nerds podcast, you'll understand the reference. Now we've got date, and I'm going to put an N there for a normal date. So that is just the day, month, and year. Now I'm going to add another date property and put T, because this one is going to be slightly different, and I'm going to have the date. I'm going to use the include the time, and then let's not have it. Then let's have it at 1 p.m. That'll do. So now we've got the time. So this is a different version of that date property, and this will change what you see in other views, the timeline view being the most obvious one that's recently been added. And let's duplicate this just to speed things up a little bit. And let's go date. What shall I put? Let's just put a 2 next to it. No, 2 next to it. And this one is going to have an end date. So I'm going to use the end date and go 21 to 22. Now you can see we've got 2 dates. And again, this is going to affect the views that you have later on in the different views that you have. Calendar view is going to be an interesting one when we look at that. So that's the date property. And then we've got the person property. And I think it's just going to be me. Yep. Let's put that one there. I'll probably blur some of that out in the replay, but that's me. And that's all you really can do with a person property is just tag someone that's in your space as a guest in your space or anything like that. And then we go files and media. Oh, I didn't name it. File. Let's add this one in. And let's hope it doesn't go to, yeah, there we go. Let's put a Notion picture in there, nice and simple. They're all icons that I have in my space, in my dashboard space, which is here, you can see. So all of those images you can bring in and do what you want with, really. Then we're going to move on to the checkbox, which is very, very simple, and it's just you can tick or you can't tick. And moving through to the URL. And this, again, is very, very simple. You just add a URL. So what we can do is, let's grab the, can I grab that one? Yeah, let's grab that one anyway, because no one is in here, so that's fine. So I'm going to grab the URL to, this is my StreamYard link. I'm using StreamYard for this stream. So this is the link for that. And you can see, let's drag this out so you can actually see what's going on. You can see there's an option here. So in the table view, if you click on the text, it just lets you edit it. But if it's a URL link, you can click on this link and it will take you to that link. Now, if I was to click on this, it's going to come up on my other screen, which is where I can see everything that's going on. And that's something specific to the table view, but you can see it elsewhere in other views, which we'll go through later on. So, and now we're going to the email. I'll move to the scroll bar. That's something that's mildly irritating. It goes to the cursor rather than the arrow, like the pointer finger, but hey-ho. Email, so danny@dannyhatcher.com. I did spell it right, yeah. So that is my business email. That's my email. So if you want to contact me, there you go. And the exact same thing is with this property. So if you were to put an email in a text property over here, you wouldn't get the option to email them straight away. But in the email property, you get this little pop-up option where you can send them an email. That will take you to Outlook or whatever you use, Outlook, Gmail, and then you can email them from there. Let's make this smaller. Let's carry on down the list. So phone, as you can imagine, the phone does pretty much the same thing. I'm not going to put my phone number in there because this is on YouTube, and that would be a silly idea. So let's just put 0777777. Yeah, that'll do. That'll do. And then if, oh, it does let me call that number. I'm not going to call the number. That'll be an interesting thing on stream. Yeah, let's not do that. But you can call that number from Notion, which is a nice feature. I personally don't use many of those properties, so I don't use the email or phone property. It'd be great for a CRM system if that's what you're using in your business. Then as we go down the list, so these are all the basic properties that we've gone through. The date property we have 3 different versions of. Now I'm going to skip over formula for a second, and we're going to go to relation, video. Select database, and let's hope I don't have another database called videos. I don't. So what I'm doing now, for those that don't know what a relation is I'm basically combining actions and videos. So this one property is going to go between the actions database, which is what we're in, and the videos database, which is the one that we've got below the one on screen. So there is that database, and it's right here. You can see it's in database views. Oh, yeah. I think that's the right one. If it's not the right one, we'll find out very soon. So you can see there is the relation, and it's now made a reciprocal, i.e. another relation in this database. So making this relation has automatically made this relation. This one was by default, and this one's there. And it's given me a name related to actions video, because actions is the database, and video is because that is the name of the property. So that's how this name is made. I'm just going to rename this to actions, just to make it smaller. Okay, so we now have a relation property inside of here. And what this allows us to do is, let's go video 1, video 2, and video 3. Oh, let's put a space in there. That was a small little trick as well. Instead of pushing enter, which adds in another page in the database, you can use the tab, which drags it across so you don't have to make the page and then delete the page again, because that's just irritating. So we've now got 3 different videos, and we have this dummy page. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to relate video 1 with dummy page. So what this has done is it's looked at the videos database. You can see it up here. And if I was to right click, I could copy the link, open the link. You can do that in the app, but you can't do that in the browser, which is one of the advantages I think is using over the app, because I create a lot of linked databases inside different templates and things like that. So I use this feature, the copy link here, quite a lot. But what the relation allows me to do is I can now push plus here. And what this has done is made a link, there you go, between video 1, the dummy page, and the video 1 here. So it's basically a bidirectional link between those 2 pages. And for the purpose of the table view, all you can do is click into it and then look essentially at just that page. So this could be useful if you just want to have a look at something else. So if I was in the videos database, for example, and I wanted to see, okay, what action have I got to do? I can click on here and see what's going on in here. And I can reorganize this view, if I wanted to, by coming into the actions database. So very quickly, if I was to go into this page, because that's how Notion works, all of these properties are at the top. A recent added feature is we can now hide these properties. So we come into here, we can customize the page, and we can always show, we can hide, we can do whatever we want with them. I've got a video on my channel explaining all of this, going into more depth. But for this example, if I drag this multi-select down, so currently the multi-select is at the first of that relation property. If I drag this down below the date properties now, we're going to see date 2, date N, and date T. Now when we come back into this page, I can look at this relation, date 2, date N, and date T. So what I've done is I've reorganized the properties inside the original database to reorganize the property view in this relation. That could be helpful in lots of different ways, but for viewing in a database, it doesn't really make a difference what order these are in, because you can change them around where you want. That is very quickly the relation property. Ooh, I clicked on plus by accident. There we go. And I'm going to turn this into a date property, I think, for the moment. And I'm going to put last Saturday as the date. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a rollup property. And a rollup property is using that relation property that we've had, but you can have mainly 3 different types of rollup properties. And the reason I say that is because it's the way Notion reads rollup properties. This is getting a little bit out there, but yeah, it's the way that they read it. So let's go roll text. So what I'm doing is I'm looking for a relation. So the relation that we have currently is the video. That's what we've just made. And then we have the property. So I'm going to select the date property. And that date property here is the date property in this database. And I'm going to use show original. Now I could use any one of these things, but for this rollup, I'm going to use show original. And why I've put this as text is because Notion actually reads this, even though it says November 14th, 2020, Notion's reading this as text, not a date, which is mildly irritating, but it's fine, it works. And that may change in the future. So if it's changed in the future of making this live stream, then yay, because it makes life so much easier. Okay, and then we've got roll date. Oop, I didn't mean to put the hash there. Let's get rid. Oh, roll date. There we go. So I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to go to video. I'm now going to go to properties. I'm going to use the date property in the video, and I'm going to come down here, and this is the difference between show original and this one. We've got earliest date, latest date, and date range, and all of these are going to give you different things, i.e. the earliest, latest, or date range. I'm going to use earliest date, and what this does in the roll-up, so viewing in the table, you can see it's 8 days ago, and technically it's 7 days ago, but it's using the timestamp that it has on the day, and I'm not going to go into all of that, but that's what it's showing. What this has actually got behind the scenes is the 14th of November. That is the date it's using, but in Notion sense, Notion's words, Notion is reading this one, this property, as a date property, and this one as a text property. And that will affect how you can use these properties and views later on in the stream when we go outside of the table property. Now I'm going to add in a number property into this database just so I can show you the roll-up of a number property. Let's go 45. Sorted. Let's leave it as a number. Now when I come into here, I can go there, go roll-up, and we're going to go roll number. And keep going. And we're going to use the same relation, video relation, property. We're going to use the same property. No, we're not. We're going to use a number property. What am I saying? There we go. And then we're going to, and then showing original for some reason here shows number. I assume that's because it's the type of property that we have, but it's always going to show the number. Then if you've got multiple numbers in here, so if you have, if you're rolling up lots of different numbers, you can sum it, average it, median, blah, blah, blah. You can do all of these different calculations. But for the number property, I'm just going to go with sum, just to keep it, just because I can. There's loads of options. You can pick whatever you want. Because it's the number property, it's always going to read it as a number property, but you could roll up a relation property, for example, or you could roll up another roll up, or you could roll up lots of different relations or loads of different things, and you can get loads of different values from here, but they'll be read as a number property. And the number property is read differently when you're looking at other views of databases. So we've now got a roll-up for a text, a roll-up for a date, a roll-up for a number. We've got a relation. Let's have a look what other properties we're going to have a look at. The formula property works exactly the same as the roll-up, but I'll go over that one in a second. We've got created time, created by, last time. So let's just make some of these. Created time. And this is read as a time property, and you'll see how I know this in a bit. Let's go last edited. I should have written the name then. Last edited. Enter. And let's carry on. So we've got last edited, created time. Let's add in created by. And that's always going to be me because I'm the only person in this space. But if you're in business, or if you're in a team space or a business space or enterprise space or anything like that, you have multiple people, you can, whenever they create, whoever creates the page or the task or the project, they will be in here. Then we're going to add in another property, last edited into here. Oh, have I already got that one in there? Let's put an A at the end of it. I've already made a last edited. Oh, I did. It's there. That was another thing that they've added. So for those of you that don't know, when you, well, you've just seen it, but when you add the same name property, it tells you that you can't do it. So I'm going to put last edited by. Now this potentially, I mentioned this in a recent video, this potentially could be API related, or this could just be bug fix related. I don't know. But I think it's a really nice feature that they've added, because the amount of times I had the same property name, it was just a pain when I was working through formulas. But hey, getting a bit sidetracked there. So we've got created by, we've got edited by. Actually, that's all of those, isn't it? Yes. So now formulas. I'm going to make this really simple. And I'm just going to copy the formulas that we've already got. Copy the properties we've already got. So we've got a text property. So I'm going to put text in there. And what this is going to do is this is going to copy, essentially, the text property. So we've got a form text. You can see this is text and the orange. And there is the text in the orange. We're going to have them all the way back here. And let's add in a date in here. So let's go formula form date. and here. And then we're going to use, let's use the now one there. That's fine. So that's the date property. Let's just copy the date property. And now I'm going to use, so we've got text, we've got that, and then we're going to bring a number in. So form number. And then we're going to use, let's use the number property. There we go. That one makes sense. Sorted. So they are all the different types of properties you could have inside a database with the majority of the variations. They could look drastically different. You can add more tags, less tags, etc., etc. But that is the variety of properties you could have in a database. Now, in a table, you can then hide these views so you can only see certain amounts of them. But what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to create a different view. So we're going to go into the board view first because that's the first one on the list. And what this board view has done is it's looked at certain properties. So it's gone and looked at, you see, select 1, select 2, and select 3. So it's using the select property that we added, and it's basically categorizing them by that select property. Now we can actually change that. So if we go to group by, we can group by a multi-select, a select, or a person property. So if you have a list of tasks or a list of projects or a list of notes, and you want to group them by the person property, you can use that person property. You see, there's me, and there's the other ones. So these are the untitled, and that is that board view. Now you can see here, we've got the dummy page, which is the page we added all the stuff in. And I don't want to see all of this stuff because that's just a lot. So what I can do is I can come into properties, and then I can deselect all the ones that I don't want to see. You can see them disappearing from the views. Or you can select them. And I'm going to keep them selected for a reason that I'm going to show in a second. In the board view and some of the other views, you can change the size of the card. So we've got small, medium, and large. We're going to go small. You can see it's much smaller. And then we go large. And you get much bigger. So if you have lots of information in this card, then you can make it larger or smaller. Now, some of the properties that you have in the page can also affect what you can see. So here you can see the page cover and the page content, which is always available. Irrespective of what properties you have in the page, you can always show the cover or the content. So if I select content, there is nothing in that page, so you're not going to see anything. If I select cover, it's the same thing. However, if I come into this page, just as a very quick example, and add a random cover, and add in random content, you can see there's the cover and it's showing on the page. Go into properties. Let's come into here, show content. There's the content, but the property that we've added in, that is the file property. You could select an image, select a photo, select anything that you want, and you can make it the cover of the card. Are you rebranding your channel? What do you mean by rebranding my channel? My channel is me. So when it comes to am I rebranding myself? No, I'm not. The type of content may start to like not necessarily move away from Notion, but there's only so much you can talk about Notion. But yeah, so if you could clarify that in the chat, that would be great, Yusuf. But no, I'm not changing my channel. It's just Notion Nerds is a different channel. And that's with John, and I don't know whether John's in stream or not. With this, you can relocate, but they're kind of limited, so I would probably make it the size that you need it. Let's just say that position. So that is that property right there. There we go. So let's move that to none because I don't want to see all of it. Now, most of these properties are just viewing properties. You can't really interact with them at all. However, the checkbox property, you can tick this from this view, so you don't have to go inside the card to tick this off, which is nice. So if that's a done checkbox, you can tick it from here. The link is a clickable link, so you can see the difference. So all of those properties that had that small little icon at the side, you can click them. So this is the link, this is the email, this is the phone number, and I can click all of these from this view. This is a relation. You can't click that from this view. You have to go inside the page, but you can call people, you can email people, you can go to the link from here, which is a nice quick jump all over the place. So you could have this on your dashboard and you can just click through these things or click into the tick box, and then that could filter out things. It's entirely up to you how you want to customize that. And then none of the other ones are interactable, but inside the board view, you can use the tick box, which is very nice. And as a very quick example, before we carry on, you could filter for any of the properties that we've added. Now, I'm not going to go into all the filters because there are so many things that you could filter for. As you can see, you could add loads of different filters. I'm going to specifically go for this one, go unchecked. So I'm looking for that checkbox that we had is unchecked. So this is a filter that we have on the database. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tick, where is it? It's there. So as I tick this, it's going to trigger the filter to get rid of it. And it's all hidden. If I then get rid of this filter, it's still there, it's still saved, it's just hidden. So that is the board view. So just as a quick overview, using the group by allows you to group by either a multi-select, a select, or a person. The difference between the multi-select and the select is thumbnail style. Oh, okay. Because your thumbnails changed entirely in the last two. Yeah, that's me experimenting. I'm seeing what works, what doesn't work, looking at CTRs. I will be doing a video around the YouTube strategy and how things work. But I'm looking to see if there's a better thumbnail style or a worse thumbnail style, or something that works better, something that doesn't. There's a lot of stuff on the back end that I'm looking at. So specifically CTR, mainly for the thumbnails. But yeah, it's marketing. Marketing changes. I like bright colors, but not everyone likes bright colors. So I'm seeing what works. And those videos have done well. I don't know whether that is CTR or whether that's, I'm interested in that. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know whether it was the title and the topic rather than the thumbnail. So what you can do, I will go over this in much more depth, but what you can do is you can group videos inside YouTube Analytics by thumbnail type, by title type, and you can see what the CTR is, what the average view duration is, views percentage is, watch time is. You can use any of the metrics. So what I'll do is I'll compare the thumbnail, the videos that have the different thumbnail with the old thumbnails and see the difference. And for those of you that have joined the channel are over about 1,000 subs, my thumbnails were random. They were all over the place because my CTR was like 1, maybe 2%. And then I found a style that worked, which is a style you're probably familiar with. He's becoming a professional YouTuber. Sort of. I know a lot of the theory. I know most of the theory because I watch a lot of them a lot of the time. But putting it into practice is difficult. Putting it into action is difficult. But yeah, so I will be going over all of that sort of stuff and all the stuff that I do behind the scenes in a couple of videos coming up because, there's just so much to it. And I love nerding out about Notion as much as I do YouTube, but no one's seen my nerding on YouTube yet, other than John when we talk after stream for like 4 hours. But yeah, so back to the Notion. So with the multi-select, you can see this page is actually, it's not duplicated. You can just see it multiple times because it's a multi-select, which for me, when I first saw this, learning and growing, exactly. And I've learned a lot getting to the point I'm at, and I'm sure I've got a lot more to learn and put into practice, really. Create a checklist in Notion. Nerds rock. They do rock. A checklist in Notion for, there is so much stuff when it comes to YouTube. I mean, I get sucked into Notion for a few hours, and I get sucked into YouTube for a few hours, and then my day's gone. So I need to avoid both platforms as much as possible when I want to get stuff done. Even though, like, Notion is my job and YouTube is also my job, so I just get sucked in. I'm just a lost cause. I just don't have a chance. But yeah, so when looking at this multi-select, I kind of get confused. It's a little bit off-putting when I'm looking at this because this is actually just one page. But using the multi-select, because it is in all of these, you can only see one. Now, something that is unique to this view, which is nice but also mildly irritating, is if I drag this to this. So it is, dummy pages currently has got three tags. If I drag it into there, it now disappears from tag 2 and goes into tag 1. You can see it's now only tag 1 and tag 3. Tag 2 has now disappeared. And then we've got tag 1 and tag 3 because it's the same page. So they've actually got rid of that tag just by dragging it out of there in the board view. But to add it back in, I can't do that, which is kind of irritating looking at the way that these work. So if I was to drag this to 2, it now gets rid of 1, but adds 2. And then it's coming to here, and now it's got rid of 3 and added that. So let's just drag that out there, shall we? And I can't just, it's just irritating. But when I go back into this page and we come to here, and we tick all of these again, it's now showing up in all 3 views, which is good. But yeah, and there is a way to tag there is a way to grab all of the tags, but I can't remember how to do it off the top of my head. For some reason, it's avoided me, but then I don't use the board view, so that may be why. So that is the majority of things that I can think of that relate to the board view. Yeah. Very quickly, you can hide things as well, which is nice. And the other things that are useful, depending on the properties that you have, excuse me, I clicked on the wrong thing, that's why. Depending on the properties you have, it also changes the number or the value or the thing that you want to show at the top of the board view. Can you alt drag to duplicate the tag back? That is interesting. I have not thought about alt dragging it because alt dragging it is a duplication. So I don't know whether that's going to duplicate the page. That would be my guess. Yeah, it has. It's duplicated the page. And now we got loads of stuff. Yeah. Let's not do that. Let's get rid of that. Oh, okay, of course, because I got rid of 1 page. No, alt dragging doesn't work, unfortunately. But yeah, so the values up here, if you've seen my CRM system that I've made in Notion, I use the number property up here, or the calculation property up here, to show the estimated value of that that column. So all of the different leads and projects and stuff that's going on. You can use so much, because I've got every single property type in here. Basically, every single option is available. So if after the stream you do want to play around with Notion, I would suggest going back or basically recreating what I've done, making all of the different types of properties and then looking at all the different options you have, which is, it is worth trying. Yeah, exactly. Everything's worth trying. I mean, I spend my day playing around with this stuff. That's how I find out some of these small things. When mentioning small things, one of the updates they made, the name of the property, that previously wasn't shown, it was just a tick box. But now you can see the name of the property in the board view. It says checkbox. So if I change the name of that property to done, it will say done here. That was a recent change that they made alongside the scroll bar, which was nice. And I think that's a nice addition. But yeah, back to this. You can see, you can count all the values here. You can count all unique values and roll-ups. They added that in. Thank you so much. They've added unique roll-up values, which is really nice. I may go over that later on, but that's not really related to a database view because it doesn't affect them other than what you can see in the view. So you've got unique values, then you've got count empty, you've got count not empty, and you can see it's not really changing the bar because you can do it with pretty much all of the properties. Oh my God, that's the dates are brilliant. Yes, I agree. Not empty. Then we've got some. So you can see the role number and the form number. So the roll-up properties that are text and date they're not read as number properties. And this is what I was saying when I was making those properties. Depending on how Notion reads them will affect what you can do with them. So if, for example, in a formula property, if you don't understand formulas, plug your ears. But if, for example, in a formula property, you turn a number into a text string using format, you then won't have access to this with that formula because Notion is now reading it as text, not a number. So you then have to change it back to a number using toNumber in a formula property. You can plug back in if you're not formulas. So this rollup is a number property, so it's being read as a number. This formula is being read as a number property, so I can use this. And it's the same with the average, median, min, blah, blah, blah. And the range. Earliest date, same thing applies. So the rollup date property is a rollup property, but it's being read as a date property, so it gives me this option to use it. The number property is not here because it's not a date, and the same with the text. And the formula is exactly the same. The formula date property is being read as a date, but the formula text and number aren't. So those options aren't there. And again, the same thing applies. So this is more specific when you're looking to change the date view. So if you use a formula, so if you use the format date formula to change how the date's viewed, maybe you want to see months, days, weeks, years, or whatever. If you're using the format date property, you change the date from a date to a text. So you wouldn't be able to use that formula here because it's now a text, not a date. Again, formula talk, but it's something to keep aware of if you do use formulas. And I know some people in chat do use formulas. All my boards now have in 3 days and in 2 days. Hours are at the top. Yep. Yep. I mean, I don't personally use the board view because I work by the date. But yeah, I think it was Teresa who recently did the office hours, the meditation office hours with Marie on. Oh, I was going to say on Friday, but yesterday. She uses a similar thing as well. Right. So that's earliest date, latest date range checked. Now for checked. Oh, I should have done that. Mistake by me. So checked. This is looking at the checkbox property, but you can also have a rollup property that is checked. Excuse me. This is a template to explore. This currently isn't a template to explore. I have made it literally on stream right now. All I did was made a database and added all the properties in. So if you go back to the beginning of the stream, you can see all the different properties that I've added. And then you can make it and just do it again. You could just make it in your space and recreate it. That's why I've done it this way, so you don't have to download, duplicate anything. It's just make it and explore. So yes, we've got checkbox in there, and this can be a roll up. So shall I make? Yeah, let's quickly make that property so I can show you. So let's go down to the. You know what? Let's just add it in here. Roll check. And we're going to use the rollup property. I believe this still works unless they've changed it. I don't know. I haven't explored this one yet. Well, I haven't explored this one again yet. Of course, I need to make another one. See, I should have planned this out. I should have. By the way, I'm doing this off the top of my head. I haven't actually planned any of this out. I'm just doing it as I go along. Done. I really want to be able to change the name prop type to at least. I agree, Yusuf. I 100% agree. Something that I would like to be able to do with the name properties, put a formula in there. If I could have put a formula in there, it'd be so good. But I can't because I have formulas in almost every space. I've just got to okay. I have formulas in almost every space, but I don't always need the name. Okay. So we've got name property. We're going to go to done. And we're going to go checked. 0. And I believe... Actually, that may not work. That may not... I didn't want to click there. That may not work because that's not going to read it as a checked, is it? No, it's not. Didn't think so because that's now a number. See, this is where literally I play around in Notion just as much as I think everyone else potentially should do. Uncheck no because that's going to do a calculation. So show original. Maybe this is going to work. Because I haven't explored this. No, it doesn't. Okay, fair enough. That's my bad. My mistake. But it's worth exploring. It's definitely worth exploring. So it's only the checkbox that it's going to count in the board view. Interesting. Unchecked, I imagine it's going to be the same. Yes, it is. % checked and % unchecked. So these calculations in the board view, you do inside of the rollup. Because when I'm rolling up this property, there's those options. So those options in the board view are actually here. So maybe that's why, because essentially those calculations could be done in the roll-up. So that would be why it's not being shown. It also makes it easier from the other side. Yeah, that's me talking to myself. But yeah, so actually what I can do then is I can get rid of this property because that property is not going to affect any of the other views. But it's always worth exploring. Okie dokie then. So that is the board view. Yeah, in a nutshell, that is a board view. Now let's move through to, let's add a view. Let's go to the timeline view. So this is the brand new view, brand new view that they've added into Notion. And I did do a whole video specifically around this thing, around this view. So there's loads of things incorporated into this view. With the properties we currently have, they are automatically hidden for whatever reason inside this page. And that may be because of the type of view that this is. So if I was to add these in, it's going to add it in the table view inside the timeline view. So I'm going to drag these across. I'm not going to add all of them because it will basically turn this timeline view into a table view. But you can add views in here. So you could add all of those properties that we had in the table view there. So if, for example, you wanted some of those interactable, is that a word? It is now. Interactable properties like the checkbox or the links, you could have those here. So you could click on them. So if we get rid of those for a second and we bring up the checkbox, Oh, why is it showing that? Oh, it's because it's now got rid of the table, hasn't it? And show table. Thank you. Okay. There we go. There it is. So we're going to get rid of the. So as you can see, we've now got a timeline view of properties and a table view of properties. And this is unique to the timeline view. I'm going to get rid. Actually, I'm not going to get rid of those just so we can see it. So I'm going to bring a checkbox in. And you can see you can interact with that there. And I haven't experimented with this bit specifically. Can you interact with it here? You can. Yes, you can. So you don't even need it there. But personally, I would have things like email or phone numbers or any links, external links here, because I don't like that view where it overflows from the page. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to change this to hours. Now, this page has multiple different date properties in there. So we've got all of these different date properties in here, plus we have the date property here, which is the formula date property, and we have all of these other date properties. And because this is a timeline view, we could use any of those date properties to affect what this looks like. And we go into timeline by to do that. And you see they're all here. And as we change them, it will change. Okay, it's disappeared. So let's come back into here, go days. Where is it? There it is. So it's back here now. So you can change the different views of the page in the timeline view by the different property that you have. And it's the same in the calendar view. So if we now go to this one, so it's 2 dates. So now we've got the date range. We've got a start date and an end date. Bang, there we go. Now there is no problem with 2.3458 properties on a page. Nope, not at all. So you could see now it's gone from the start date to the end date. And the main thing with this view and the calendar view is if you go to the end, you can actually change the end date or the start date here. And depending on the views, depending on how quickly that goes across. So we're currently in a day view. So you can see it's 12:45, 2:45 even, and 2:30. So that's changing by 15 intervals. If I go to a week, it's currently 21st. And we drag it across, and now it's 22nd. So it adds a day. So depending on what view you're in here will change how much it moves. And it's the same thing as to how much it will show here. That is the majority of the timeline view. You can still filter and store just like anything else. The timeline by, when you're looking at something that has a start date and an end date, you could use any of these properties. So instead of using the 2 date property, you could have 2 different date properties doing this job. So let's use the now date property as the start date, and let's use the, is the formula date different? I'm not sure. If it's not different, then it's going to look very boring today. Okay, so let's zoom out a bit. So there we go. So that is where we're currently sitting at. Then if we change the, wrong one. I want to go to timeline by. So if we then change the end date to, what's got a different end date? Because that's gonna be the same. Roll date, that's the same. That's because it's going to take the first date. They're all the same date. That's really boring. I need another date. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a very quick formula just to make things easier. Oh, that's not the formula I wanted. I want this formula. So I'm going to use a date formula. So if I scroll down, you can see you've got the date icon next to it. And if I go all the way down to the date functions, you know what? I'm just going to do it. Date add. So if I click on date add, you can see what's going on. So you can see the icon here. This means it's a formula. This means it's a date. And that's what I was saying about the different outputs, how Notion reads it. So this one is Notion's going to read it as a date. The hash is going to read as a number. The lines across, that's going to read it as a text. So I'm using date add. You can see here's the example. So we've got the date. That's the date that we're using. And I'm going to go into here, and I'm just going to go for days to make it really nice and easy. And what that's done is just added 4 days on. So now when we come back into our timeline view, you can go timeline by. you can use formula date, and there we go. So now we've got the start date, which is the date property, and then we have the end date, which is a formula date. And the reason this is really useful in this timeline view is that formula date can be dynamic. You can make any formula you want, and as long as it's read by Notion as a date, this will change automatically. So for example, if you're using the now function, I'm talking formulas. If you're using the now function in a formula and you want to date add, as the day moves to the next day, the end date will also move because it's automatic with inside the formula. So it's nice to have a static start date with a date property and a fluctuating end date, or maybe the other way around. It's entirely up to you. But that is what you can do in the timeline view. Oh, that rhymed. I like that. And just out of curiosity, I'm going to, actually not out of curiosity, just because I want to make it look really, let's just show everything. Let's show absolutely everything to see what it looks like. I'm going down the list, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to tick all of these again because we've got it in both views. Actually, let me know in chat, because I think the timeline view is unique in this case when it comes to start and end date. Do you think they should add the start and end date to the calendar view as well? I think that could be quite good because the calendar view is essentially the same as the timeline. It works pretty much the same, except instead of it being in a timeline style view, it's a monthly view. I know people want to see a weekly view in a calendar, which, let's be real, that would be really nice. But I think having a start date and an end date inside the calendar view as well would also be quite nice. Let me know in chat if that's something you would use. I mean, I know personally I use a lot of formulas, so I think I would use it. Right, so there's all of those properties. Oh wow! Come on, Notion. It really doesn't like all of these properties, does it? Is it throwing me back? Looks like it's throwing me back. It is throwing me back. You nasty thing. Okay, maybe that would be cool. Yeah. Plus 1 million for week view. Trust me. I've said it so many times. Notion, I think I have found a bug with the timeline view on stream. It doesn't like it. Doesn't like it. Okay. Well, I'll have to do then. Yeah. Clip it. That's what the streamers say, isn't it? Clip it. Clip that. All right. Okay. Let's get rid of that view and see what it looks like in here. So it's showing. It's not even showing all of them. That's interesting. It's interesting. So it must have a limited amount of properties you can show in a table and in a timeline view. Interesting. I'm learning with you. Okay, so that is the timeline view. If you've got any questions, by the way, put them in chat or any ideas about anything. But yeah, the week view in a calendar, that would be nice, because sometimes I don't want to see everything that's going on. Okay, so calendar view is the next one up. Here we go. Now, the calendar view is actually slightly different when you go into a main page. Same with the timeline view. The timeline view, when you go into a database page, so when you open up as a big page using the two arrows up here, if you open up the timeline view, you can just keep scrolling, but you can do that in the end line. The difference with the calendar in the main view is here you can only see a month. So basically you get, what's that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks. So you get 6 weeks inside this monthly view. If you go and actually view the database as a page, so you can see this is the page that we started with. That's the database views page we started with. This page is a database page of the actions database. So this is the actions database, and it's a database page. The difference between a normal page and a database page, a normal page, the one we're on, we can add multiple versions and we can add loads of different blocks in there. This page we can't. And the advantage of having a database page or going into your database page is in a calendar view, it's just an endless scroll. So you can scroll for as long as you want with these nice new scroll bars all the way down. So when you want to see multiple different months or weeks and scroll up and down all over the place, you can in this view. But in the linked database view, you can't. You can only see, 6 weeks. So here is this page. And the same thing is available inside the calendar view. You can drag them across. And there is another day added into whatever the property is that we're currently using, the date end property. Let's actually get rid of that because I don't want that in there. There we go. So you can drag that across and you can add only days. So the timeline view allows you to add minutes or hours or weeks at a time. You could drag this down to add that all the way through. But again, you could be limited. If this is here, then you'd have to drag it in the next view because you wouldn't be able to see it. So you'd have to go to, so let's actually do that. Let's come drag that down to here. So I've just changed the date. And then I'd have to come down because I can't drag through views, which is where you may want to go into this main database page up here. So let's, oh, it's not going to show because it's, oh, click the wrong way. There we go. So let's bring it back into this month. Go to today. And let's come up here. There we go. Some of the funky things with the Notion dates, which, yeah, it's just not nice. I'd like to be able to see it here if it's in the other one. So when we come into here, you can see calendar by. So it's the same as the date by, except this is a calendar by. And this no date is also really nice. So the no date brings up anything that doesn't have a date specific to the calendar by property. So this one, you can see we've got untitled and untitled. If we then come to here and we go, actually, date to this property. Come in here, boom, there's the date. So there's one up here. Now when we go to calendar by, we can select any of those date properties. So we've got the formula date property, we've got the to created, we've got the rollup date property, and the other date properties. If we go to date 2, dummy page has 2 dates. But the page that we've just added a date to, we didn't add this date to it. So when you're looking at a calendar, if you're not seeing a page that you know you have a date in, the most likely reason is that your calendar, for whatever reason, has a different calendar by. So you may need to come into here to check. Something to note with the calendar by, if you're using a date property and you drag things around, it will stay inside of the database. So it will stay inside the database view, and you can move it where you want. You can make it smaller, longer, anything like that. If, however, you're using a rollup, you can see when I start to move it, that blue line, I'm pointing at my screen, that blue line at the top of Notion, that's basically telling me it's going to move the page outside of the database, which I don't want because this is a rollup. So you can't change a rollup from a calendar view and the same. So, whoa, it's just jumped. It's jumped miles. Oh, where's my, oh, there it is. Okay. Yeah, so if I move this anywhere, it's going to go outside of the page, which is not fun. That's not great. But it's because the formula and the rollup are using a date property elsewhere. So if that does happen, make sure you go into your calendar by setting to change that to make sure that you're actually seeing what you want to see. Okay, so we've got the database lock. I don't think there's anything else special in this space, but what I am going to do is, again, go into here and I'm going to add these properties because these properties, again, are interactable. We're going to add this one. These are all interactable inside the calendar view, so I can tick that off from here, or I could, oh, they were, but they're not. So I can't actually interact with those now. That must have been a change that they've made. But yeah, so you can interact with the done checkbox, which is nice. Something that may be nice for those that use Notion calendar a lot is for a second. When you're in here, you don't always have to go to the plus button to add a new page. You can actually double click on any date and it adds a page for you. So you don't have to go to that plus button. That's something that those people that use calendars a lot, it may speed it up instead of having to go try and find this add date all the time. But yeah, so that's a nice little, I don't know whether it was a hack or a tip or a trick or anything like that inside the calendar view, but yeah, double tapping is nice. Let's move that one over here. What I will say when you're using the calendar view is when you start making, let's just put this in a quick column. So what I've done is I've made, actually, Control-Alt. So what I've done is I've made 2 columns with text blocks, so they're next to one another. Now I'm going to drag this calendar view of the database in here. And I'm going to move the, actually, I don't even need to move that. So you can see the calendar view has changed slightly. So it's smaller, obviously. And as we drag this out, you can see more and see less. As you make it too small, you can't see a damn thing. And on the phone, you can't see any of this writing. On the phone, you can't actually see any of this writing when you're using Notion on your phone. iPad, I'm not too sure about, but on the phone, you only get the red dot. You get the red dot as the day, and then you get a dot to say you've got something on the page. So for me, if I was on my phone, if I was using my phone a lot, I wouldn't use a calendar view, just as a heads up. Right, so let's get rid of that and carry on. I guess it's a tool, sort of. List view. The list view is probably the view that I use the most, aside like with the calendar. I use the list and the calendar next to one another. The list view is similar to the table view, but you don't get all of the information. So I personally wouldn't have a list view like this. I would have it in a column next to something else. But you have the same availability here as you do with the table, with just the table view. So the board view and the board view and the gallery view are similar, and the timeline view and the calendar view are similar. So this one, you don't have a group by or a calendar by or timeline by because there is nothing to sort it by. It's just filters and sorts that you can add in. And there's so much you can do with that I'm not going to go through it all. However, with the properties, the same thing is available. And I am going to check to see if these are still available with the, didn't want to push that one, with that one and the URL. There we go. So yes, you can. So with the URL and the phone and the tick box, you can still interact with them from this view. Something to keep in mind when you're making a dashboard is because you won't want to show everything, because if you show everything, it gets all squished and doesn't look very nice. So let's just quickly add on a few of these things. Yeah, there you go. And it starts to get all mushed and squished, and it just doesn't look nice. So depending on how much space you have in your dashboard will depend on how many properties you want to show. Personally, I would only show the tick box and then maybe a relation. That may be useful for me anyway. So I would uncheck almost all of these. I wouldn't use any of that. That would all go. That would go. I wouldn't use that. Let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of that. And let's show that. There we go. So I would show the relation in here, and then I would show the checkbox here, which we can check or uncheck. What I would love to happen is this be interactable. So I could click through the relation to go to that relation, or click through the page or anything like that. And similar with the rollup, I'd like to be able to click through the rollup to go to where it wants to be. But currently you can't do that. So you'd have to click onto the page, which then shows you all of this, and then you'd have to find the rollup. For me, what I've actually done in my space is I've used the most recent update, which is really nice, hiding properties. And I've basically gone down here and just hidden absolutely everything other than relation. So when I click on the page, the relation is right up here, and I can just click it and see whatever I need. And then I've got some rollups for information that I need, but I don't show many properties because I don't need all of that information. But again, that's personal preference. So what I'm actually going to do very quickly is show you an example of what I personally do on my dashboard page. I'm not going to show you my dashboard page because it will take some time to load, because I'm using some heavy formulas going on, and my computer does not like me streaming and showing that page. But what you can do is you can make columns, and now you can see I've got this and this. So now I've got my actions and my videos, so I could see what actions I've got and what videos I've got. Something else that I'm also going to mention is, let's drag this down. Let's drag this out of there. Is what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a linked view. So I'm using the exact same database. This is a nice add as well, mention page. So you can mention it instead of create the link, which is, it makes like the little at mention. And I've created a linked database. So this is I'm still using the same pages. I'm still using the exact same information as I have in the actions database. And whatever I do here is going to happen in here as well. So you can see there's the dummy page, there's the untitled page, dummy page, and untitled page. What I do in MySpace, let's quickly double check what property it's using. So it's using that one. So what I can do in MySpace, you can see we've got one page that doesn't have a date, and that I'm guessing is going to be this one. I don't know, but I can drag this from here to here. There we go. And I've now added a date to this specific page. If I wanted to, I can drag this out and, actually, let's, yeah. So what I could do is I could filter this for no date, and then, so let's actually quickly do that. So I've alt dragged that down into here. I'm going to make a list view. This is how you could customize your dashboard with different views of the same database. So I'm going to delete this one. So I now have the same database 3 different times. I'm now going to come into here. I'm going to go filter, add filter, add filter, name, date, and then is empty. There we go. So now what I can do is I can come over here, drag that in there, and now we have no date on this one. Then if I drag that down into here, bang, there is now a date, and so it's disappeared from this view because it's got a date. And you could use this for adding a tag, adding a date, adding a relation, adding any sort of property that we currently have in Notion. So I could use this combination of filters with any of these properties. And the reason this happens is because when you have a filter, it will automatically add what is on there. And when you add anything in a calendar, the calendar is essentially an auto filter. Hopefully I didn't lose you guys there. But yeah, so that is really useful when you want to have a list of things that you need to plan for. Maybe this could be a list of all the things you need to plan for, all the actions, you drag them into the calendar, and now we have a date. And now your list is empty. So let's quickly delete these. So we are back to our normal view. And let's go to the very last view that we have. And then we will have gone through all the current database views. They may add some more in the future. I don't know. So this is the exact same as the board view. It functions very, very similar, except you don't have categories. So it's not using the select, the person, or the multi-select to categorize this. This is just being ordered by the name of the property, which is dummy page, untitled, untitled. You could then sort those in different ways, filter them in different ways. And what you can actually do is, if we go into properties, you can see we've got all of these different options. Now, fit image is something board view does have inside the property changes, but for some reason it's not viewed in the same place. I don't know why. Fit image basically just changes the image that's shown in the gallery view, and the image that you choose, you get the same options. So you get none, you get page cover, page content, and file. And file is that Notion icon that I added in the properties right at the beginning of the stream. And what I'm going to do is just push to fit, and you can see now Notion is fitted inside the gallery, which is really nice, and you can make it unfit. But yeah, so we'll leave it like that for the moment. You can make them smaller, you can make them bigger, of course, and then of course you can have them with nothing. Now I'm going to leave the picture there for the moment, because what you can actually do in the gallery view, which you can't do in other views, you can do in the timeline view, but you can't do in most of the other views, is you can hide the name. So you can get rid of the name, which is really nice. Hopefully they do that in the rest of them, but I can just show the image. I don't think it lets me show. Yeah, so if I get rid of the image, it makes me show the name. I don't get a choice. But if you're showing anything, you can actually get rid of the name, which is really nice. And the same thing applies to all of these as it did with all of the other views. So we add the phone, we add the checkbox, we add the URL. They all come down the bottom. And again, like they added recently, you can now see the name of the property. Let's just actually change the name of this property so you can see the difference. So let's say this is a to-do property. Oh dear, to-do. Oh, I'm not feeling well, by the way. I've got a cold, my eye's hurting, but I'm still doing it. I'm still streaming. And this bright light in my face is actually not as bad as I thought it was going to be. But anyway, you can see the name of the property has now been changed to to-do. To-do. Yeah, to-do. And you can still interact with the link. You still interact with the number. You can still interact with the email. And you can interact with the tick box. This in a gallery view is really, really nice. Really, really nice when you want to view, when you want a more aesthetic page. And if you are looking for more aesthetic pages, I would go to the Notion bar on Twitter, or I think that's the name of her public page. But yeah, at Notion Bar, I believe is her handle on Twitter, and she's much more aesthetic when it comes to Notion than I am. And I know she uses galleries and GIFs and a lot of other aesthetics with colors and stuff like that. So, Lemsip, Lemsip, yeah, it's a cold, but it's not a big cold. It's more because of it's more because of all the other stuff that I've got going on that my body's just like, no. Basically, I think my body's just telling me to just have a do nothing day. And to be fair, I haven't done that much today. But yeah, I don't know whether it's a cold or whether it's a combination of things. But we'll see. And I haven't been out, so it can't be the thing. It can't be. I don't know if I'm going to say it on stream, but it can't be the thing because I haven't been out of the house. But yeah, it happens. So that is, I think, every single thing inside a database that you will really need when it comes to database views and all of the properties and how they can affect the different database views.